My name is Clara, I'm 34, and my coworker tried to steal my career's biggest project right out from under me. Before I tell you how I let her walk into a boardroom and present my work to the entire leadership team, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. She always smiled. That was the first thing you'd notice about Emma. A bright, wide, confident smile that could charm a snake. She was the office golden child. And I was the one who did the work. In the corner of that sterile, glass-walled boardroom, I watched her glide between executives, laughing at a joke from a director, touching our manager Mark's arm reassuringly. They loved her. They saw her energy, her buzzwords, her confidence. They didn't see me, tucked away in the corner, the quiet architect of the very thing she was about to claim as her own. She thought this was her stage. She had no idea I'd written the script. For 4 months, my life had been a project codenamed Chimera. It was an AI-driven logistics model that was set to completely overhaul our company's supply chain. It wasn't just a project, it was my masterpiece. My fingerprints were on every line of code, every data model, every predictive algorithm. I remember the nights, fueled by stale coffee and the hum of the servers, sketching out frameworks on a whiteboard until my hands were stained with marker. I remember the thrill when the Python script finally ran without an error at 3 a.m. It was a part of me. My colleague, Ben, a data analyst with eyes as sharp as his mind, would often see my car in the parking lot late at night. One evening, he brought me a cup of tea, looking over my shoulder at a complex web of code. He let out a low whistle. "This logic, it's got your signature all over it, Clara," he said. "No one else in this company builds a framework this clean. This is brilliant." He was the only one who saw the real work. In meetings, it was a different story. I remember one, a month ago. I was trying to explain a critical data point, but Mark, my manager, waved his hand dismissively. "Great, Clara, we can circle back to the technicals. Emma, you got something splashy for us?" Emma, who hadn't looked at a spreadsheet all week, leaned forward with that winning smile. "I'm thinking, we need to leverage synergistic disruption," she'd said, stringing together buzzwords like pearls. Mark had beamed. "Exactly. That's the big picture thinking we need." I felt myself shrink in my chair, becoming invisible. It was a familiar feeling. The storm broke on a Tuesday, 3 days before the big presentation to the VP of Strategy. I was walking past Mark's office when I heard Emma's voice, oozing with false modesty. "And of course, I was up all night finalizing the AI model," she was saying. "It was a beast, but I finally cracked it." I stopped dead. The plastic water cup in my hand felt impossibly heavy. My blood ran cold. She was reciting, word for word, the key findings from my summary report. My findings. My late nights. My breakthrough. And Mark was just lapping it up. "Incredible work, Emma. The VP is going to be blown away." I felt a hot flush crawl up my neck. But beneath the heat was a layer of ice. It wasn't just anger. It was a terrifying, absolute clarity. I turned and walked away before they could see me. I went straight to the deserted restroom on the 3rd floor and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide. For a second, I saw a flash of raw hurt, of fury. I wanted to scream. I wanted to storm into that office and expose her. But then what? It would be my word against the office darlings. I thought about going to HR. A long, drawn-out process that would end with a he said, she said stalemate. Emma would just smile her way out of it. Looking at my own tired reflection, I realized something. They had left me no conventional path to justice. So, I would have to create my own. The anger and hurt receded, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't going to fight her. I was going to let her walk right into a trap of her own making. I went back to my desk. Ben saw my face and started to ask, "Clara, are you I'm fine, I said, my voice steady. Everything is going exactly according to plan. That night, my apartment was silent except for the clicking of my keyboard. I wasn't destroying anything. I was building. First, I took my finished, perfect, 32-slide masterpiece, the real Project Chimera, and saved it onto a sleek, silver USB drive. Every chart was triple-checked, every data point verified. Then, I turned my attention to the company's shared server. I knew Emma was lazy. I knew she'd just copy the version from their minutes before the meeting. I opened the presentation file on the server. It was my working draft from a week ago, full of ideas, but the core data was incomplete. Charts were labeled placeholder. Key analyses led to dead ends. It looked plausible at a glance, but would fall apart under the slightest scrutiny. It was the perfect trap. My final move was my insurance policy. I opened my email, attached a password-protected copy of the real, finished presentation, and sent it to Ben. Subject: Final Backup Project Chimera. Hey Ben, just finished the final deck for tomorrow. Attaching a password-protected copy just in case. My nerves are shot, haha. Talk tomorrow. Clara. I hit send. The timestamp was my alibi. My proof of authorship, locked and loaded. I leaned back. The trap was set. The boardroom was buzzing with that specific tension that comes before a high-stakes meeting. Directors and senior managers were sipping coffee. At the head of the long, polished table sat Ms. Albright, the VP of Strategy. She was a woman who didn't waste time on smiles or small talk. Her presence alone commanded silence. Emma stood at the podium, glowing with confidence. She gave me a tiny, pitying glance as she plugged in her laptop. The show was about to begin. Good morning, everyone, she started, her voice bright. The first few slides were fine: title page, agenda. She was reciting my executive summary from memory. Then she clicked to slide 5, the one meant to show the core problem analysis. The chart that appeared was a mess of placeholder data. The title read, Insert Q3 Logistics Data Here. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, but she tried to power through it. So, as you can see, the data indicates significant challenges. She clicked again. The next slide, meant to detail the AI model's architecture, was just a title and a blank box. The air in the room shifted. The quiet hum of chatter died. Emma's smile started to look brittle. She was visibly sweating now, stammering as she tried to bluff her way through concepts she didn't understand. Ms. Albright, who had been watching without expression, finally spoke. Her voice cut through the awkward silence. Excuse me, Ms. Davis. Emma froze. The pre-read packet I received mentioned a detailed, functional Python model. This appears to be an early draft. Ms. Albright looked down at the paper in front of her. It says here, she continued, her voice dangerously neutral, that Clara Anderson was the lead data analyst who developed that model. Every head in the room turned to me. Ms. Albright's sharp eyes found me in the corner. Ms. Anderson, perhaps you can shed some light on this? I took a slow breath. Yes, I can. I walked to the podium, pulled the silver USB from my pocket, and calmly plugged it in. As I did, Emma shot me a look of pure venom. I ignored her. My presentation appeared on the screen. 32 slides of flawless, detailed, irrefutable work. I didn't just read the slides, I told the story behind the numbers. When a director asked a tough question about data outliers, I answered without hesitation. An excellent point, sir, I said, my voice clear and confident. That's a result of the custom script I wrote to handle anomalous data, which addresses that very issue. That script probably wasn't integrated into the earlier draft on the server. I didn't need to point fingers. I didn't need to say she was a fraud. My work was speaking for me. The truth was unfolding, slide by slide, in front of the very people she had tried to fool. The room's dynamics had been completely rewritten. I was no longer the invisible woman in the corner. I was the expert. When the meeting ended, the applause was genuine. Ms. Albright gave me a curt, approving nod. As people filed out, congratulating me, Emma cornered me by the door. Her face was a mask of rage and humiliation. "Why did you do that to me?" she hissed, her voice low and shaking. I looked at her, not with anger, but with a strange sort of pity. "I didn't do anything to you, Emma," I said calmly. "I simply presented the finished work. You were the one who chose to present a draft." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle between us. "You didn't just try to steal my project," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "You tried to steal my future. I just gave you the one you actually deserved." I held her gaze for a second longer, then turned and walked away without looking back. The conversation was over. The boundary was drawn, permanently. The change in the office was immediate and seismic. It was like a spell had been broken. People started coming to my desk, asking for my opinion, including me in conversations. Mark, my old manager, couldn't even meet my eyes. A week later, Ms. Albright called me into her office. It was a corner office with a view of the entire city. "Clara," she said, getting straight to the point. "Competence needs to be in charge. I'm making you the official lead for the national rollout of Project Chimera. You'll report directly to me." The next morning, a company-wide email announced Emma's resignation, effective immediately. Later that day, I found a small, folded note on my keyboard. The handwriting was sharp and angry. It wasn't an apology. It was something more honest, more bitter. It just said, "You were right." 6 months have passed since that day. I'm now leading a team, building on the foundation of Project Chimera. Sometimes, in the middle of a big presentation, standing in front of senior leadership, I think about that note. I still have it. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that the loudest voice isn't always the truest. That sometimes, the only way to be heard is to let your work speak for itself. It took me a while, but I finally learned that lesson. And in the quiet hum of the servers and the clean logic of my code, my work was now speaking in a language that no one could ever steal again. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's a crazy one, I know. I'm curious, have you ever had someone try to take credit for your work, and how did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to read your stories. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe for more. It really helps the channel out. I'll see you in the next one.